yeah, it's
The happy space. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
just being patient because it's you in a new business, a new
yes.
practice. That's it. It's new. So just give it time. That's all. It's always, you don't know in the beginning. That's why it's new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, there's some peculiar expectation we have that we're going to learn stuff instantly. No, it's new.
Yeah.
And that's why there's a process. It takes
Mm-hmm.
time.
But I'm excited about the process. I was really
Yes.
limiting myself with that, and I was very aware of it. I was aware of that. Come on, too nice. It was one of those mornings. Um, I was very aware of this fear. Now, what exactly it was, I don't know. And I also wasn't trying to figure it out. I was just very much aware of it. And one of the things that came out of this session too was my understanding of what I'm feeling.
Very good.
And now
Very
that I'm understanding what I'm feeling, I'm not afraid to touch it.
Ah,
There you
perfect.
go.
And last
There you
night,
go.
another thing, and it's funny because it happened in the session with Dan too, and he told me, like it's definitely a rookie mistake because I want to practice, and I'm just trying to get my flow. It's about listening to the client of where they need. So about listening and hearing,
There you go.
um, where they need the help and where they would like the help. And even though if you feel it should be here, I mean, think about it. It's so in tune with what we're doing. You still have to go to where they're asking for it until you get there.
Exactly.
So at one
Exactly.
point, I was on Dan, and he literally told me, I couldn't tell you how many times with his one shoulder
Mm-hmm.
that he can't move it a certain way. And I went to go practice in a certain way. And it was like, oh my gosh, you literally just told me
Wow.
this. So it was a good aha. But then I came home and I worked on Kevin. And Kevin wanted me to work on his low back. He
Mm-hmm.
kept saying, my low back, my low back, my low back. Well, because again, that nervousness wanting to practice, guess what? By the time I got to the back, I was tired because I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this physicality, but I didn't go to where he asked me to go. And it was wild because we just sat there and he was able to share that with me. I was able to internally go, wow, that's right. I didn't listen.
Yeah.
You asked for your low back.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. And I understand part of why, because I'm still learning. I'm trying to, I was in my head as far
You're
as
immersed. Yeah.
I was
You gotta do
immersed.
this. I gotta do this. Yeah.
But then I stepped back.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were sharing together, he was still on the table. I said, you know what? I'm getting up. And I just got up and I just started working the low back. I started feeling into it. I started sensing into it. I started listening to it. And boom. And it was a nice,
Cool.
it was nice to have that happen to me. That what, I didn't listen to the client.
Mm.
And to be more mindful of listening to the client even while I am practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fabuloso.
Most
Um,
fabulous. I just want to mention something about just learning in general and doing new things in general. Uh, when we learn a new thing and we are looking to implement and put into practice that new thing, in our minds, what we are doing is we are trying to replicate what we've been taught,
Mm-hmm.
typically, right?
mm-hmm.
I've been shown to do X, Y, Z in this particular way, and in my mind, I'm trying to do exactly that. There's a problem though. What you've been taught and what actually happens, especially when it's a physical skill, are seldom exactly the same, right? There's always some translation you've got to make between what you've been taught or shown and the actuality for you, right? It's almost never, because it's a communication thing. It's very hard to tell somebody when you go, all right, use your thumb this way, go this way and press so far and feel this. You've got to experience it. So this means that whatever you've been shown is going to, of necessity, require some adapting, some adjusting, some plussing or minusing. Now, when you go to implement, if you come into it with this understanding that what you've been taught is an approximation, more or less, and you've got to do a bit of adjusting, a bit of plussing and minusing, you automatically start going, a little more, a little less, and you vary, okay, this direction, that direction. You start to experiment and explore around the concept that you've been taught. And that greatly facilitates learning. That to me is what practice is. When we explore around the idea of what we're trying to do, this massively accelerates learning, massively. And it goes a little bit against the logic of doing exactly what you've been taught. It's impossible really to do exactly what you've been taught because the language isn't there to teach us exactly, or at least very seldom. Yeah.
Yes. So I had shared with him when he was on his stomach and I was doing his back, the instructor, and the instructor even says, this is how I do it. You have to find it. But again, I'm watching as a student. He breaks it up into quadrants when he's working on the back.
Yeah.
And so as I'm working on Dan, I'm saying, well, he works in quadrants, and he goes, why? And I said, he even said, that's just the way he does it. And Dan said, you have to find what works for you, which then that brought in what the instructor has told me. You have to figure out your own. And then once I was able to get past that and we started working it and feeling it, and Dan was so great because he would move his body in a certain way and go, feel in there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, because I was asking about the shoulders, I think that's where I got the biggest lesson was he had his arm out and I was by his pec and he was just doing different motions with his arm so I could feel the muscles moving.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually the biggest, as well as the head. I said, I'm afraid of turning the head. I go, for some reason, I'm very awkward at it. He took my hand while he was laying down and he's like, just put it behind the ear and just move it. It was, oh my God, the simplest thing ever. And think about it. And I've been doing cranial and it was mind blowing. So yes, overall, my takeaway is I am excited.
There you go. Yes, of course. And all it requires is that little bit of adjustment to what you think you are going to do. So don't think it's exact, think it's approximate. That's it. Every instruction you have, think of it as approximate, more or less. And then you go and experiment a little bit. Sometimes it's the tightest, tiniest little tweak you've got to make. And there it is. That's it. But always there's that bit of tweaking involved. So when you're going to implement your skills, what you've been learning, always think I'm going to be doing a bit of plussing and minusing. That's what I call it, just to remember it, or adjusting or experimenting. But it's plus or minus, you do a little more, you do a little less. That's it. It's very simple, or you go in one direction or another, but that's it. It's plus or minus. Whatever you're doing, if it's direction, pressure, strength, whatever, you do a little more, a little less until you find the exact spot. And then you do combinations, of a little more, a little less. So it's very cool, very simple, very simple. And you'll be doing something different. You're not going to be doing it exactly because you're not taught exactly, despite how precise somebody may be. Unless you're playing the organ, then exact might work.
Yes. But
right.
tired?
In any musical instrument, you say, okay, play a A flat. Well, you can play it, hold the note, you can play it loud, you can play it soft, you can vibrate it, whatever. But on organs, that's it. You just hold it. Okay, A for 2 seconds. That's it. It's very precise. Unless you're doing math, which is precise. Most other things require this plussing or minusing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's very useful to be aware of, because now you don't get stressed in, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? There is no right it's more or less, and then you will discover through your plussing and minusing what's exact, especially in something that requires interaction with something else, right? So you are being taught an inexact science on a movable object that varies. So in any case, no matter how perfectly you learn, you've got to do that plussing and minusing with the client, no matter whether you've been doing this for 100 years, right? And you've been having the same client. The client isn't even the same every day, right? So you've always got to do that adjusting. In other words, you've got to listen to not just the client or the object or the result of what you're doing, but you've got to listen to your own self. So you've got to hear what you are doing, in the full context of abstract hearing. Yes, got to be open to perceive the inputs that are coming. Where's the plus possible? Where's the minus possible? What effect does it do? So that continual adjustment, it's a feedback loop that you constantly want to have going on, and you want to develop that skill of this constant feedback loop, not just between the client, but between your actions. Yeah.
Yes. And
what you are doing. It's what you're doing now. Yeah.
Now that I feel more comfortable, I will also be more comfortable with the plussing and the minusing.
Yes, exactly.
It really helped me get out of my head.
Yes.
That overthinking. And it's funny because just when, as we all know, just when I thought, oh, I'm understanding overthinking, boom, I've been given a new task from the universe to say, okay. So now what is overthinking?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doing. Yeah.
Now with work, something happened on Friday that there's a long story short of it, an MRI got all muckety mucked. But the story behind it is I'm going to have to go in this morning and correct it. But I had gone on vacation and an MRI came in and the one girl thought she was doing correct with it. So when I come back to work, I get a thing from St. Luke saying, the authorization number. I see that we have an authorization number. I send it over. No big deal. So then it comes in again. I had that thought of, this doesn't seem right. But I'm also not going to correct this. This may come back and become a snowbally thing, but it had more to do with I choose not to fix everything anymore. And this is also a patient that came to us 2 times. That's it. Has never been back, and once an MRI. And I've always been one to, that's the stuff that frustrates me. So I chose not to. Well, on Friday it came to a head because it was the wrong facility, the insurance, blah, 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 blah. So the behind scenes of all this is it was very hard for me not to fix something right at the beginning. But I also chose not to fix it because and the reason I'm bringing this up because it had it also my impeccability, doing the right thing. But so this was really a test for me as well to not fix something to, I guess, help teach others as well. And that in the end, we'll get it all corrected the way it's supposed to be, whether somebody's happy about the timing or not. It was just more a matter of on all sides that there's a lot more that goes into this. And I'm not going to stress myself over it anymore. And when everything did go wrong and I knew I would have to fix it, it also was a lesson for me to say, I knew it, I should have, I actually stepped back. I zoomed out. I said, you knew what was going to go on. And guess what? So you just go in and you work with it when you go in. It's not the end of the world. This is not rocket science. This is not an emergency.
Yeah.
This is a real lesson for myself in allowing others to do what they are going to have to learn how to do, as well as for others to see the repercussions of when we are bending over backwards in ways that we really shouldn't be bending over backwards for, because of the stress it creates all
Yeah, you
around.
gotta let them know sometimes that you're
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah.
So in the end, that is good. Let me just grab this from my doggy because, like I said, Macy, you sweet little thing, you're just being absolutely in one of those modes today.
We gotta change it. That's all. You gotta lead the change, right?
Mm-hmm. Be the
Very
change.
calm. Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm. How's your
But,
dad?
but Dad, you know, I thought about him over the weekend. I have not seen him in a while, and no news is good news from the facility. But next weekend is Memorial Weekend.
Uh-huh.
I am flying down there, so I will get to see him.
Oh, good.
Excellent. Excellent. And Amanda, she came up.
I'm actually going to see her on Friday
Nice.
because she started to get back
Yep.
to work,
Go
and I
back to
see
work.
her on Friday. Now she had a bit of a bump because she was doing better, and then her daughter wound up in the hospital with a kidney infection.
Mm-hmm. But
But
she's okay.
she's okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I will get to see Amanda on Friday, and I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Tell her I
Excellent.
said hello.
Excellent.
I have another friend. She used to work with us. I don't know if you know her, Sue, or not, but Angie Anderson.
No. Mm-mm.
So she used to work with us. She was one of our coworkers, and I don't know why she kept popping in my head every so often. But you're busy, life goes on. Well, I happened to go on Facebook yesterday. It's so weird because I never go on Facebook, but every so often something just brings me there, and there was this picture of her with this message, and I'm going, all right, this doesn't look right. So I reached out to her. She has non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She had a massive tumor on her chest.
Oh, Jesus.
So
Wow.
I just sent her back, a little, I'm there with you, whatever you need.
Yeah, that's one that's, there can go into remission quite a bit. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's not a death sentence anymore between lymphoma, multiple myeloma. They've come a long way in research for that. So she should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that, she kept popping in my head, in my head.
Wow,
It's
wow.
that whole, you gotta, whatever.
Anomalies. When they call you,
Yes.
you gotta listen. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny. As I said, just every so often, just like, oh, just reach out and say hi, or just reach out and say hi, or I'd be in my car, or,
You think about her, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with going to school and being very busy, I've kind of gotten myself organized into this rhythm of on Wednesdays I do this work.
Mm-hmm.
So Wednesdays is my I call it my SIL work. And
Yeah, brilliant.
and on the weekends is my massage work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But because I'm organizing myself, and again, this is new for me, and I'm at school and different things, I am also now trying to work on, I'm not always accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody reaches out to me to say, hey, have you heard from so and so, or hey, this, or hey, that, I'm usually on top of those things. So it's what I'm understanding is that feeling of, oh, I should, what should all over myself, instead of this is where I'm at. And it's okay if somebody reaches out to me, then they reach out to me. If I'm not reaching out to somebody else, it's not because I don't care. It's that I'm living my life now.
Right.
And if somebody pops in, kind of like with the Angie thing, if it really becomes strong or something, then I am going to reach out. But until then, I have to be okay with, I'm doing what I need to do until I am asked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not selfishness or ego. It's just understanding appropriate priorities. And again, you've put yourself second and third and fourth so long that you realize it's not really necessary. You can still be you, but take care of you first. Yeah. help others as well. Appropriateness. Yeah,
Yes.
appropriate helping, appropriate you, appropriate everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
All right. I
Yeah.
think we're on slide 39.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I did not pull up my.
39.
I just want to pull it up on the screen too.
It's
in
very
case I-
appropriate. It's very appropriate, as usual.
What? What's appropriate? I missed.
Oh, the slide where we're starting and what we were talking about, the plussing and minusing.
Oh.
Well, it always is.
Exploration.
Oh wow, this changed. The way the course looks online.
Is it different?
Yes.
Oh, maybe it's just not fully loaded. You know, sometimes it takes a little while to load the graphics.
All right.
Interesting.
Yeah, and all my stuff isn't marked off. Oh wow, very interesting. I'm sorry, I'm not. And I was up
Sure.
early too. Oh, there we go. This looks. Yeah, it was just a little bit different way of getting in today.
Yeah, just a little slower sometimes. Oh, they changed something on the site. Yeah, so when you go in, the actual graphics, the visuals are different for you.
Actually, where I just got in right now, that's the regular way, but it brought me in a different way until I got to this point, and now this looks the same. So I don't know.
So something changed. Yeah. They said they're going to change something. So.
All right, let me just get to that. Because, I write it differently sometimes. I just want to make sure.
Besides extra options, we also make space.
Okay. So the way I have it is besides extra options, I also make space for exploration.
Yes.
All right, we're going to put in here. Wait a minute. We're just going to add it right now. Plus and minus. I deliberately make space for exploration, inviting another, especially a client, to jointly explore with me. To get into that spirit and mindset of exploration opens them to an appropriate, much needed mindset. A critical aspect of making space is also what it releases another from. When I invite a client into a space of trust, I release them from doubt and anxiety. When I invite them into our emphasized appreciative space, I release them from isolation and feelings of unworthiness. When I invite into our space of exploration, I invite release from justification, legitimization, excuses, feeling bad, old, legacy, being stuck, not knowing, and a whole host of similar undesirable connectivity.
Yeah. Expectations and ideas of should and shouldn't, and it has to be this, has to be that, and so on. It's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. Yeah.
Slide 40. My invitation is an invitation into a joint exploration. It's important because today everyone is much more aware of what's involved. Most know some jargon or terms and have some idea of what's going on inside them. Another major reason why telling is even more ineffective than it was. The client or another knows without fully knowing and is coming to us for assistance. Even though they might say help, assist is what they usually really mean. The difference lies in how much they feel or know they know. Inherently, most know they actually want and need assistance, not help. Learning by myself makes the thing real. If another does it for me and gives me the solution, I'm deprived of that power, which comes from doing it myself. That is so true.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if we think of our interactions as being a more or less, right? and what comes from us as a more or less, then we shift our whole perception of what's going on when it comes to interacting with somebody else. We are now got a more or less, we are trying to connect with their more or less. Yeah.
Yes.
So that requires plussing and minusing. Now, we understand the plussing and minusing involved. So when you tell, that's trying to be exact. It's very hard to do. When you share, it's automatically, this is where I'm coming from. It's implied that there's a plus and a minus involved. So don't take it exactly. And also when I'm sharing, and I monitor in real time how what I'm sharing is being received, I can adjust as needed. Furthermore, we are already starting from a hearing point of view. So we are hearing what the other is saying with that depth of hearing, which is a plus or minus applied to what they say, right? We are doing the plussing and minusing on their behalf in our hearing, yes? We don't just assume what they are saying is exact. We know it's not exact, very seldom. So we are already plussing and minusing. Our responses are to encourage or to stimulate, or maybe just to get a bit more on what they're saying, or just in our silence, we imply, oh, there's more. Oh, I didn't realize there's a plus, you know, or when their mood goes a little bit towards self-pity, then we kind of, you know, shut that down. So we do a little bit less, right? So we are always in this plus or minus exploration adjustment phase and stage when we're doing hearing or pretty much anything. You know, life is inexact. So we always got to be in this exploration adjustment stage. Yeah. Always plussing or minusing. But particularly when it comes to hearing, we are plussing and minusing what we hear. Plus, when we then share, we are making adjustments and adaptations to whatever it is. And if we are going to be sharing something more, when it goes out, we check to see feedback. Okay, hasn't really resonated. I plus or minus because I'm listening. Our communications are, of course, always interactive, right? So we're always plussing and minusing communication itself. Yes, interaction. Same as with your massage. Always plussing and minusing. Always.
Those 2 new clients I had last week, well, the week before last week was there, they had come back. And I was given such wonderful opportunities in regards to what we're doing here, because with the one, oh my gosh, she held on to something that we had shared in regards to what, you know, she was on the table and she felt twisted. And when we were sharing about it, I go, you know, how are you feeling? And and I don't know if I said it first or she said it first, but that twisted feeling, well, it was really interesting because I heard it. I went, oh my gosh, because she came back the second time. She goes, well, you had said the last time that I was twisted. And I went, oh my gosh, that, you know, that being careful of. And then I couldn't remember, was it that we both came up with it, didn't we? But I was very aware of, it was a beautiful opportunity to, this is a particular client that is going to hold on to every word I say. So to be very, very, especially with her, to not put myself on her. So through the session, when I heard that, I was very much, if I'm hearing you correctly, I kept using it over and over again. Let me repeat this. Did I hear you correctly? Mm-hmm. The second client, she came in, I've never seen her look so good.
Look so what?
Good.
Oh, good. Oh.
Yes. She had pep in her step. She, just the way she was holding herself, it was absolutely fabulous. And with that particular session, not much was said between the two of us. It was just feeling into the body, and I tried to be very cautious of not saying anything either. Wow. Because it didn't need to be. And so it gave me opportunity of, I want to, and then it's like, no, it's not appropriate for you to be sharing or saying anything at this moment. But that other client, with as soon as she had said, it's like she's looking to me for answers that I know she has within herself. So it was absolutely fabulous that I had that experience to learn from.
Mhm.
And I will see them again this week. So we'll see what wonderful experiences will transpire from there. And, but that one about her saying, you said, was
Mhm.
huge, 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 huge for me to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a real example of you.
Brilliant.
When you have an intent to share, you allow that space for that plussing and minusing for people to learn and people to explore as needed. But the minute you tell, it changes everything. The door's shut, and that's all they laser focus on. And so there is though, it's almost like there is no movement because they take that word as the gospel, and they don't allow that plussing and minusing because of the way that it's delivered in a telling mode versus a sharing mode. That's why you'll see your words of, if you could consider this, or is this a possibility? It will be greatly helpful because it gives them a choice. You're not telling them, you're sharing that to them as an option. Could this
Exactly.
be possible? And let them think. Otherwise, it's, oh, well, Robin said this, Robin said that. That's ends up, it's not going to end up being in your favor.
Yeah.
No, and you know what she kept bringing up, and I did not know how to approach this. So maybe we can, in this dialogue or listening, I put on weight. It's constantly about putting on weight. And I'm actually listening to myself when I say certain things, going, oh
So
my
thank
God.
you.
Okay. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't know how to ask a question appropriately. So I just kind of let it go. But I really wanted to be able to have a question to ask her and here's looking, wow, and I'm ready to say that word, to help her instead of to support her or to assist her. Oh, wow, 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 wow. I was trying, oh my gosh.
Learning to ask things in question form is tricky. That was a huge adjustment for me personally, because you're used to, providing information. But when you learn to twist it and put it into a question form, you really let them think about it, and then they come up with their own answer, which is the right answer, not yours, theirs.
Exactly.
You'll learn further in the program about the questions and, how to come up with some of your own.
Yes. For now, yeah. How to react or to respond. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Respond. Sorry, Sue. You kind of faded out there, so I wasn't sure if you were done or not. I just wanted to say, for our focus in this program is first to establish hearing, and second to establish making space, and to absolutely establish those two habits as our primary default go-to automatic before we do anything else, right? Because if we still in this mindset of responding or giving a response, a question, an answer, something or other, we still in that mindset. Our brain is thinking, what do I give them? How do I respond? We want to shift the brain to default to just absorbing, making space and hearing. That's our first thing. Then the rest will come automatically once we're in this high habit of absolutely hearing. You'll find the same thing with your massage. And massage, I'm so pleased you're doing the massage. It is a physical implementation of hearing and making space, right? You don't always know where you need to go with your massage, but when you hear the client, you hear yourself, it becomes obvious. They'll always tell you, even if they don't say a word, they'll tell you, right? But you've got to be in that hearing space to hear it. You've got to make space for them to share, right? So if you, for instance, if you're just doing your massage pro forma, you're not making space for them to adapt to it, right? So, but when you have that plussing or minusing, and you're feeling your way around until you know what you want to do and you know what they want, then you say, oh, this is what they want. Oh, I see, they're more sensitive to this, less to this. Okay. You're hearing, right? When your hearing will tell you what to do. Always, Does it make sense, Robin?
So we're not, yes, on the massage side.
But just apply it to this. Same thing, just in the abstract. Just think of yourself spiritually massaging somebody through just hearing and making space.
So what I actually should have done, because I don't know, it's coming to me now, is really interesting too.
Yeah.
She is sharing about this putting the weight on, and I am now feeling that what she really needed or was asking for, that her body anyway, was actually just to support her and hold her.
Exactly. There you go. Exactly. Exactly. Fantastic. Fantastic. That's hearing. See, you are seeing more beyond what is communicated. That's hearing, perceiving more, letting more come to us. So we can think of when we are applying capital H hearing, especially in a client type of an interaction, when somebody is interacting with us and they're just talking, right? You're not doing anything physical, right? That's the only interaction is through. It's not the only interaction just talking. What you're actually doing, think of it as massage with attention.
Okay.
Right now, our attention isn't a direct outgoing thing. Our attention, you can hold, pull it back to make a space, which they then fill, right? And that's very powerful. I mean, it's hard to do that with massage, where you are using a negative pressure. I don't know, if you could use kind of a suction in massage, that would be the equivalent, but that's what we're doing. We're creating a negative pressure, which people automatically fill, like nature, you fill a vacuum, nature bores a vacuum, things move towards where there's space. Exactly the same thing. Our hearing creates a space, and we deliberately make a space as well. We make a space, for instance, to say, yeah, you can be honest. Yeah, you can talk about anything, right? And that happens in many different ways. We can do that, subtle comments, or just an attitude, just an attention, just with that idea that we have to hold that. So we create all of the space for them to fill, and then we plus and minus, we massage as appropriate. Yeah, when there's pain, we work around it. Where there's pleasure, we go more, we emphasize, right? So we are always plussing and minusing. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that
with attention, we are massaging with attention, but we are going to use negative attention, as it were, making space, right? So in this, that I'm creating something for you to fill. And that's, you don't have that in massage so specifically, but we do have that in when we are interacting in this way.
But I think she could apply it to massage by
Absolutely.
the time, especially how Dan works, and you'll see that how much more effective it is. Again, traditional massage is get in there, dig around, and like put a lot of pressure on there. The way he teaches is very similar to backing up and hearing. So he goes to a spot, but then he comes off of it to listen to it. He doesn't barrel down into it. So there's the space he is creating to find out more by that less than harsh touch. You realize he doesn't do that. He knows, he listens to the body, just like you're listening to someone's words, to the effect of how much pressure can their body take. And again, how much pressure, how many words can that person take when you're speaking to them? He's doing the same thing with his hands, just minus the words. That's all the difference is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So there is that negative pressure that Sil was referencing there, and you'll learn to do that with your hands by lifting off of it. Just like cranial too. The more you press in there, the more you exert pressure, you're just having the body react and defend itself. Where if you just kind of make that space and listen and feel those feelings, it all comes. Yeah. It's the same thing with massage, and you now can translate that to speaking and listening and hearing. I think would, you know,
I like that, the plussing and minusing of that.
Yes. And here's the thing that we want to understand too with pressure. Pressure in a closed system is always balanced,
Mhm.
right? So take a balloon, put it in your hands, and you press in one space. Typically, well, you can't see it on a balloon because it's somewhat unusual, but usually when you press on one spot, there's a lump that goes out in somewhere
Right.
else, right? So what we are typically doing is taking the lumps and massaging them to get it even, because the system wants to be a nice smooth balloon, but it's got all these bumps and lumps and dips and dents. So, you know, they don't always come out. Sometimes they go in as a hollow, you know, as an inward contraction, which makes an out somewhere else. So that's what we are doing. We're balancing the pressure in the system. We're either, you know, pulling on something to bring it out, you know, popping in a dent out, or, you know, you relieving a bump and massaging it smooth again. So when you think of it in that way, and also realize that for every bump, there's a dent somewhere else, right? And that's when you're looking at this from a balance point of view, it's very helpful in this plussing and minusing. And that's where the hearing comes in. Somebody's got the pressure, they focused, it's that bump, it's that thing that's sticking out, right? But we make space for them in the end more, and the listening to hear more. And they realize, oh, there's this gap, there's this hollow, there's this vacuum in me somewhere else. The thing that I've been avoiding, right? Now, because that's typically the case, some awful truth they were avoiding, which makes a disproportionate pressure somewhere else. And that pressure is what they come with you, and they're all stressed about it. Well, it's, you know, it's very simple. You're avoiding something, some awful truth, and that's caused this pressure. We make space for them to face it and deal with it through the venting, through the sharing, through the coming out. We just have to sit there and listen. And then, yeah, okay, bloody hell. Yeah, I realize I've been an idiot. Okay, I've got to face it, no responsibility. Okay, well, whatever. And, you know, there you go. Pressure balanced, pressure resolved. It's very simple. Same thing in the body. It's exactly the same thing. You know, that's
In the
what they do.
body, if somebody comes in and is complaining of their quads, it's usually not their quads, it's their hamstring. It's that
It's always something else.
opposite muscle, you know, pecs versus traps, you know, and you know, bicep versus tricep, you know. So you take those opposites, like I said, when you push that balloon in, there's a bulge someplace else,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so the dent and the bulge.
Yeah.
And again, when you think in those opposites, because that's what they are in the body, that makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
If you look at jaw tension, jaw throat tension, and connect that with lower back sciatica, you know, or that I forget the name of that nerve, the muscle, and the buttock. Say again.
Piriformis and the sciatica.
Yeah, well, just lower back and tension in the buttocks, you know, in that kind of major nerve through the middle at the very top of the buttocks point. I guess it's sciatica.
Piriformis.
But anyway, there's a very direct connection between the two. You start relaxing the jaw and the neck muscles, and then that lower back pain starts to ease up. It's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like that. The whole body's, it's all cross-wired because it's a pressure system. It's a closed system. It has to be in one way. When something's disproportionate in one place, Grace is a disproportionate in another. Yeah.
He's 100% right. Look at the stomach and pancreas meridian, which are based on the lateral aspect of the quad, the vastus lateralis, and then you go to its complete opposite, which would be the internal the medial hamstring. So those two, even though they're your legs, anybody that has those issues will also have a tendency to have jaw issues. So the stomach and pancreas are completely related to jaw pain. So hip pain, which can be sciatica, which can be, you know, quad, which can be hamstring, you know, all down in that quadrant, there's a very good possibility that jaw is directly related. He's 100% right.
Up. And here's the thing too, when you look at the body, take the jaw tension muscles, right? We've become acclimatized to this configuration, this excessive pressure. That's why we don't necessarily have it here, because we're doing it, you know, holding it a little bit too focused, and you become acclimatized to it. But something's got to give somewhere else to pay. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. you know. So poor Peter suffers from this, where you've now made it something, okay, I'm focused, I'm tense, I'm working. Something else has got to pay for that. And that's just how the system works. So it's very good to understand. So when you're looking at somebody, wherever they say there's pain, look for where there is disproportionate tension elsewhere, relieve that tension, and then the pain typically is resolved, rather than working on it directly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Look at trigger points. I'm sure, you know, he'll go over those with you and stuff. You know, you have a pain here in your neck, right here on the SCM, the sternocleidomastoid, but to release it, it's right there below the scap. You can take one of those Theracanes, if you don't have a massage therapist handy, and you press on the medial aspect of the inferior scapula. Boom. It releases the freaking neck.
It's amazing. Just
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
So that dent, I like that. That dent and bulge is a
Yeah.
visual, a great visual. No different than that plus and minuses.
Yeah. A dent and a bulge is the physical representation of a plus and a minus.
It is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's
And now see, when you think of it, a balanced system, if I've got extra tension in some spot, I'm taking energy and applying it excessively in one place, which means I've got to take it from some other place. Yeah, which means I'm making something else weaker in order to make whatever the extra tension is stronger.
Absolutely. That's
Problem.
all of the opposing muscles. Absolutely.
Problem.
When something's overworked, it's because the other one is so damn weak. And that, you know, and you're pain there. But what you need to work on is the weak one, not where that pain is usually. Yeah.
Right. Or, you know, like I said, if you're excessively doing something, you've got to relieve that excess in order for the energy to go back to the, you know, where the bulge is. You've got to, you know, relieve the bulge, smooth out the bulge, which is tension, and then not, you know, smooth it out so that it can go back to where the dent is. The dent is typically where we feel the pain, not the bulge. Yeah. Really interesting, because like I said, the one is deliberate, you see, and you've already adjusted to the pain, you've accommodated for it. The other one is a consequence that you're not aware of, and that's that balance that comes. So yeah, that's why, you know, you don't realize this, and when you're taking pain away, the thing becomes weak and awkward, and now it doesn't work properly, and of course that causes injury because it doesn't have the ability to operate properly. Yeah. Which may need its own treatments because of the injury, right? But still, the cause is typically somewhere else.
And that whole, you know, the dent and the bulge, when you're talking with people's emotions, you know, they can think that there's a pain or a soreness in their life in some area. They're unhappy there, but it's really another pressure that's being put on in a different part of their lives that's really causing that pain. You know, they're unhappy. They're not paying attention to themselves, but they come in, oh, you know, my back hurts, this hurts, that hurts. But, you know, there's that physical component that it can also be the balance, as you well know from our energy work. It's not just what they physically.
Right. It's a complex system. I don't know if you've ever had longer hair, and it got into an absolute complete mess, tangled knots and stuff, right? I mean, like super big mess. Or if you've, you know, helped a friend who had their hair get in such a mess, right? So now you've got a system where when I try to do this knot, it pulls on another knot, right? So loosening one knot tightens another knot. Yeah, so you've got to go very slowly at the tips, at the edges, and do kind of one hair at a time sometimes, you know, to get rid of it. So if you not want to lose the hair, now this is sometimes the complex from psychological pluses and minuses, right? And that it's a tangled mess. So we've got to go slowly and carefully, one hair at a time. This is why hearing is not about helping initially. The helping comes from the person themselves. We're just creating a space to go one hair at a time, because their instinct is to pull at it. And you've seen people when they do that, and well, then they pull the hairs out and then they create a bigger mess. And so, their remedies aren't that effective. And they get frustrated and stressed. They don't have patience. So we create space for them to be patient, to go slowly, to see the bigger complexity, to see things are tangled. And they can't always see it, but to just work at it slowly. And the more you do it, and eventually you get to a point where you've got individual knots that you know what you're doing and you're working with and so on. So, from a psychological point of view, but that going slowly, that making space, because it's complex. This is the key. This is the absolute key. Yeah.
Yeah, you just, I have another client, the one that comes to me weekly, and it's very interesting because last week shared more than she has ever shared before because of her husband having to go for a test. And it was the first time where she almost allowed herself to experience emotion. But I was very aware of how hard that was for her. So I didn't sit, I did not do the, it's okay, do what you need. I just sat there and listened. And she was definitely one that I kept saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, if I'm hearing you correctly.
She said that?
No, I was saying to her,
you
if I,
said,
when I was doing my repeat backs as she was sharing, I said, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Brilliant.
And then, and I just really wanted to make sure that I was,
Yeah.
because she really wanted to go with her husband to his test. And I guess the typical thing is he didn't want her to go. But I could hear she really wanted to go. So through sharing and asking questions, she had shared that there was one time she had gone for a test and she goes, no, I don't need you to come. And after the test, she really could have used someone to drive her home. So hearing that, hearing what she was sharing with me and saying to me, if I'm hearing you correctly by doing the repeat back, I just said, well, maybe there's a possibility, since you've already had the experience of needing a ride home, you could suggest to him that you'd really like to go with him,
There you go.
But I listened. I listened to everything I was hearing. I was very cautious with the suggestion because I didn't want to do the telling, or I really did everything after I did the repeat back. And that was huge. Just practicing that repeat back, that, if I'm hearing you correctly, if I'm hearing this. And, since you've experienced this, maybe this is a way for you to, I don't remember exactly. I was very, 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 very careful with not having the suggestion come from me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
but for having her come up with it herself.
Absolutely. And it gives her an opportunity. There's another chance when you do that repeat back. It's another chance for the person to hear exactly what they said. Because sometimes it's just me, words. And when you repeat it back, they're like, did I say that? Is that what I meant? And it gives them just an opportunity to think about it some more, which isn't a bad thing. And again, they get to think more and figure it out for themselves instead of you coming up with the answers.
Exactly. Now, think about what
I have a repeat back to.
Exactly. Think about what happens every time you do a repeat back, and every time say, let me see if I heard you correctly. What happens inside them? They get to hear themselves through you. Mm-hmm. How often do you not talking, especially when you're kind of stressed and bothered? Do you actually hear what you're saying?
Right.
You don't usually, right? It just comes out, because that's the reason you're stressed, because things aren't clear. But when somebody says, oh, and you now have to force to listen to them to hear, because they're checking, because they're asking, when you say, let me see if I heard you correctly, that's a check, that's a question, check what I'm saying, check me, right? Which forces them to pay attention. Now they have to actually think about what you are saying to confirm and validate what you are saying, because, they're signing off on it. They have to think about it, which means they actually get to hear themselves, right?
Thank
Is that
you.
cool?
No, I had the aha with that one client that I had mentioned about the middle. I was in a helping, because it was so familiar to me, I was in a helping of, well, what works for me, like that habit versus if I hear you correctly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, makes them think. Makes them.
But it got me out of it too. I was caught in it as
Yeah,
well.
exactly, exactly.
And I knew it, but I didn't know it until right now. Like I knew it. A repeat back. Oh my
Yeah, so
gosh.
simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. So simple. Yeah, yeah. And so incredibly powerful. Because also we may listen to ourselves when it's outgoing, but when it comes back at it from somebody else, we automatically now are hearing ourselves from a different perspective. So there's increased awareness. That's massively powerful. Yeah. And there's an emphasis, especially when we do the repeat backs the way we do them here, right? Where you write it and you say it. Wow, it's double emphasis, double extra perspective, double immersion, extra attention, focus. Very, very powerful. Very,
It
very,
is
very.
very powerful because that's how I'm going about the massage school.
Yeah.
Doing these readings, these repeat, I am approaching it just like we do here, and wow.
So
There you go.
this is how I now learn things. Is
Yes.
because of
Yes,
this program.
yes, yes. Now,
I
what
never
you,
learned like that before.
yes,
Me,
yes. See, now you
this is
make me
being
so happy.
taught, but this is learning how to learn.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what the whole program's all about. But we do so subtly, very
Yes.
sneakily, very sophisticatedly. This entire thing is about learning how to learn, yes, or relearning how to learn. Yes, exactly, 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 exactly. What it's all about. What it's all about. Once we learn how to learn, we can do anything. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Very, very powerful. Now, think of your massage as a repeat back. What I was saying earlier about the plussing and minusing, you get something, the instruction, which as clearly as it's attempted to be given, it's still a more or less, it's still an approximate, right? Because of language and understanding. Doesn't matter how clear they are, you don't have the ability to hear what they're saying because you don't have the experience yet. So it's an approximation. Now you go and implement it. Implement it as a repeat back. In your own words, take whatever the technique and apply it in your own words, in your own feelings, in your own physicality, in your own literal physical hand feeling, right? That's it. Always, anything that you are given, do a repeat back, apply it, share it back in your own way. That's the way you own it. And in order to do that, it's plus or minus, right? It's more or less.
Yeah.
So when you put things in your own words, in your own feelings, like in your own physical application, you make it your own, and that's how you learn. So apply that repeat back process to every single thing you're being taught with a massage. It'll be massively useful for you. I just love it. Just love it. Just
Oh,
love
it's
it.
becoming more and more
What you
comfortable.
guys
I'll
said
tell you that.
about learning and repeat backs, that made me super happy. That is, it's a peculiar thing though. It needs to happen by itself. You can't really push it. So yeah.
No, but every time I share with Sue or with Dan, I've been doing repeat backs in my takeaways.
Yes, yes.
That's how I'm responding with, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's where I think my connection is starting to come in because I am doing these repeat back and takeaways for myself.
Exactly. The client is always us. When we do a repeat back for ourselves, this is where the power is. It's not for me, it's for you, the repeat back. Exactly. 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 Exactly.
Well, it just brought up like everything.
In time, you'll see how very little we have to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Understanding negative pressure. It's an amazing thing. Yeah. 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 Vacuum to understand. Vacuum. Yeah. Yeah. Suction. Suction.
Did I miss 41 or is it 42?
You didn't do 41 yet. We are.
Okay. When I'm exploring together, I get to learn. I get I get to be in a space where such learning by myself is possible.
Is possible.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, this is what I am making space for. This is what I'm inviting another into.
Yeah.
I'm making space where exploration will be safe, comfortable as possible, and as much fun as possible.
Yeah.
This shift of focus, I've diverted the other from immersions and attention to what is not helpful to them.
Exactly.
When the problem, the emotion is their all, they're unable to see beyond this limited self imposed world.
Mm,
Most of us are at some level aware of what's happening. And when I seek assistance, I'm really asking to be shown worlds of being beyond what I currently know.
exactly.
You can't
Exactly.
make this stuff up, I swear.
Nope. 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 Now, those other worlds, the way we can access them is by doing a bit of exploration, a bit of plussing and minusing. Yeah. Just feel around you. It's whatever is not what you know. So you press the boundaries of what you know, you stretch them a little bitty. And maybe if you push on the one side, it creates a dent on the other side, but we need to pay attention to both. Oh, so there this outside world starts to come in, on the inverse dent, right? On the dent, not on the bulbs. Or you can access the external world through the bulbs. Either way, doesn't matter. We want to be aware of both ways. Will allow the outside, the unknown, that extra, that moreness to connect with us, right? It's very cool. Very, very, very
And look
cool.
at that woman with her about her husband going to an appointment.
Mm.
It says when the problem, the emotion is their all. So that woman is locked down in thinking that, she has to be there because how she felt and so forth. The next thing is they're unable to see beyond the limited self-imposed world. So she can't see much past that. So when we stop and make that space and let them see that there's other options or they can hear themselves, they're like, oh, okay. And again, maybe she doesn't need to be there. That could be her own need that she's fulfilling. And everybody's different. Some people don't want somebody there. Just because she did doesn't mean he does. You follow me?
Yes.
But there's a lot of power in those two statements there. People get stuck in their own stuff and they can't see beyond it. So
Right.
making the space for let them hear with
Right.
repeat backs, with questions,
Exactly.
you may
Exactly.
completely change your mind, which whatever it'll be.
Yeah.
Not one's not right and one's not wrong. It's the fact of, is she really hearing her own husband?
Exactly. And does she want to hear the husband? Because there may be consequences and responsibilities,
Absolutely.
so
There's a lot more to this. It's
no, yeah.
recognizing people are bound up in their own stuff.
Yes, yes. If I have some incoming pressure on my system, which creates a dent in my balloon, right? And I don't want to deal with that dent, I go the opposite place of that dent and I make a bulge to balance and compensate. That's typically when you look at people with a problem. They're avoiding something and creating a different problem because of that avoidance. It's very simple.
So I don't think the issue is her husband, it's her.
Oh,
Almost always. Now, I mean, the husband could be a real problem, like when you're dealing with abuse, for instance. But still, the problem is always with you because I don't know how to deal with the abuse. Okay, I don't feel like I'm in a position to get out, to leave, whatever, So it's
Sure.
always
Yeah, I
personal.
don't know how to deal with not being needed.
Exactly, or not being loved anymore, whatever. Yeah.
Being needed, having a job to do, being helpful. People teach them to help themselves.
There you go. Exactly. Or connect them to their own sensibility. Most people know what they need to do. They have enough sense to know. So all you're doing is just connecting to them what they already know what to do. Now, does it matter if their their sensibility, their problem solution is going to resolve the entire big problem or not. If you initially think that they can, no, it doesn't matter. All we want to do is connect them to the starting steps, because when you take one little step and then you do the next little step, and they'll figure it out as they go along. It doesn't matter. You don't have to solve the whole problem. The only problem you need to solve is them getting started on solving their own problem. That's it, really. And typically it's like with a hair knot. You don't know how to untangle all that hair in one go, but you know how to do it one hair at a time. That's it. So it's slowly, one little step, patiently, and then after a while it comes free, because it's not linear, right? When you literally untangling hair, one hair at a time, after a while those knots loosen, and then the whole knot can come quite easily by itself, right? When it's loose, not when it's tight, because you've removed enough to loosen the knot. So there you go. It's the same thing. So when you start, the problem isn't you're going to have to untangle the entire mass of hair one hair at a time. No, after a while, you can do it multiple hairs at a time, right? So it's a very good analogy. That's all we want to do. We don't need to have the solution at the end. We just have to assist them to connect to where they know, one step at a time, the smallest, easiest thing you can do. Just do that. Very simple. It's to get them in that mindset, to feel like, this is a big job, I don't want to do it. Okay, you know, it's not so bad. One step at a time, little, it's, oh, see, you are doing something. See, you can do something. There you go. That's really all our job is. Very simple.
Yeah. And two, you know, with those different analogies, for me, I always think of jewelry. Do you ever have all these?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, the chain.
And again, in the beginning, it's very tedious. You take one out. And so in this process, you're learning patience, you know, and diligence and perseverance as you take each one. But as you see, then it also all of a sudden starts to open up. And then all of a sudden you're taking out all these, boop, and they're all unhooked, you know. I had a woman give me jewelry. It was a dear friend's mom who's, you know, in her late 80s. So I'm like, oh my God, I never saw such a mess. 8 hours of my time it took.
Wow. Wow.
That's a lot of untangling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how they ever got that way, I don't even want to know. You know, and I finally said to her daughter, because her daughter says to me then, I said, my mom said, thanks so much. She said she's going to give them all the way to the thrift shop. I almost lost my marbles. You know what I mean? I said, please don't ever ask her to do me that again. I said, because that was 8 hours of my life that I will never get back. I mean, that was just yikes. I mean, it taught me patience and things like that. But, you know, in the end, and to find out that she was doing it to give it away, I thought that was for her personal benefit. I didn't charge her for it. 8 hours. Tedious work. The finest of tweezers and these special instruments to get in, because the fine chains are murder to work with. Oh.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, even though in that case, you know, it worked out this way, the overall abstract was that to her, she had an insoluble problem that was solved.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter, you know, your work isn't lost. It is very, very valuable. Yeah.
I know.
There's always more, you know, the abstract of it was, yes, you know, physically or whatever, in this particular case, it's exact. But in her mind, there's now the awareness that, hey, you know, the brain is able to abstract. So next time she has a different kind of a problem, she can use those methodologies. So never lost.
Exactly.
Never, ever lost. Yeah.
No, and then for self, at least my takeaway on it is, it makes me more aware of what I don't want to do the next time.
Exactly.
Or to ask questions before I.
Yeah. Next time I'll say, what are these for? Are these for you? Are you keeping these? If she said she was giving them to a thrift store, I'd say, hand them to them like that, because they're no, or you sit there. I mean, she's retired. You figure it out. No, you know, she just didn't want to do it. You know, she's a typical wants everyone to fix things for her.
Yeah. So there's always deeper issues going on.
Ooh, even in little. You betcha.
Yeah. But that's the magic of patience. Plus, you know, you discovered that you could.
But I did have patience.
Exactly, self-proof. So it's fantastic, especially when it turned out to be nonsense.
Yeah.
That's genius. I mean, that's a fantastic. It doesn't matter. There is no nonsense or sense to these things. We just do, and trust that there's a magic to it. I learn.
I did.
Always, I
I
learn.
definitely say I learned. Yeah.
Too fantastic. Too fantastic.
All right, the next one was when I'm stuck, have a problem, don't know the issue, is always unawareness of what I need to know. The problem, the big, major, huge problem, is that most in the helping industry believe they know what the needed new awareness is.
There you go.
A massive presumption. It's simply a belief, not an actuality.
Yeah.
The client, self, or another are the only ones who in the end can know. My exploration invitation implies I'm going to venture into new awareness, new options, choices, possibilities. I'm doing so safely with someone at my side, someone to help clear the bushes and foliage and perception clutter and mess.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because sometimes that's all you need is that you just want somebody there with you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them telling,
Exactly.
you just want them to be there as just a support.
Venting.
As I'm going through this.
Yes. How do you when you've got a boil, what's the remedy for boils?
Problem.
Lancing, right? Exactly. In other words, venting.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you solve a boil, right? You lance it, it vents. Once it's vented, then it heals itself, right? And that's it. So when we look at most times, there's this pus buildup, psychological pus that needs to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
I am
So when
going
we
to
make
shift
space,
that.
yeah. So when you lance a boil, are you making space for the pus to come out? So
Yeah.
when we psychologically come with somebody and we sit and say, I'm here to hear you. Here you have a place to vomit and it's okay, right? Oh, all right. Out it comes. That's it. Very simple. So when we're making space, we are lancing the boil. Same thing. Yeah. Just create an appropriate space for the stuff to come out. Once it's out, okay, wipe your mouth, move on. Thank you very much. I feel better now that, the food poisoning is out. It's very simple. We do the same thing, just spiritually, psychologically. Same thing. It's very simple stuff. Really, when you get down to it, it's quite amazing.
It's simple,
humble.
but then it's also work in allowing the boil to come out and to let it overflow to not.
Exactly. I mean, the when you lance that boil, you're not trying to fix the pus and say, oh, this pus is better than that. But no, it must all come out and you wipe it away. That's it. It's getting the pus out. It's not treating the pus. There's nothing you can do with the pus. You've got to let it come out and then it will heal itself. That's it. End of story. That's what we do. We make space, we hear. Basically, our hearing is what pulls that pus out, what sucks that pus out, because sometimes it's a line like squeezing it out. It's a little bit reluctant to come out. Yeah. So, yeah, we just make space for it to come out. That's it, really. We're not, cannot do anything with the pus. You can't fix pus. That's it. You can't.
And that last statement, someone to help clear the bushes and foliage of perception, clutter, and mess. Big comment there, that new kind of phrase out there, the lawnmower parents. They're the people who clear the path for their kids before, so that they don't run into any kind of obstacles. This is absolutely the opposite of that meaning. It's making space for them to clear it on their own. That is not your job to pick up every piece of an emotional garbage that's in the way. It's assisting them to see their own garbage and pick it up themselves and recognize it as clutter, as a mess that's limiting their perception in there. And again, we're not going to clear it and do the work for them. We're there to assist them and make that space for them to see that and lift it out themselves.
Yeah. That healing will mostly, once the pus is out, then the healing can occur. And
Absolutely.
it's so simple. It's so blinking simple, just give it space. And that's my problem with psychotherapy. They treat the pus as if the pus can be cured, and you spend years trying to fix pus. How the hell do you fix pus? You can't. It's impossible. You can't treat pus itself, right? Let it come out, the wound heals itself. Focus on that space there, and then the thing heals itself. Just give it space to do this. That's really all you got to do,
Our hearing and making space is the lancing.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly.
We are the lancers without doing. If
But
that
we
makes
use
sense.
we use a negative lens. Like we could say, okay, we're making a suction lens, right? So we create a vacuum for the stuff to come at us. What a fantastic thing to do, right? Because a lens is very painful, but a vacuum, not so much, So okay, it's very gentle. We just create the space,
Mhm.
Sometimes you may even just by asking questions, and then it's like the thing's not ready to pop yet, so you sort of stimulate it a little bit, and it grows a bit more, and then it pops and it comes out, with that emotional release. So us asking and the repeat backs, yes, and what else happened, and this, and the more they go, it's like the pressure on that thing is increasing, and then it gets to enough tension where it pops itself. So it's very powerful, very, very powerful. Yeah. Very, very, very cool. Very, very cool. So this is, those aren't the only ways to deal with problems. Sometimes, yes, there is a replacement needed. Why did you get the boil in the first place? Okay, that's a whole different sphere. When you are offering content, that's a whole different thing, right? But in order for the content, the replacement, how to deal with, let's say their diet is messed up or whatever caused the boil in the first place, right? Some vitamin deficiency. That's a different thing to dealing with the boil. Once the boil is already there, those remedies aren't going to help. The boil has to come out. So first step is to clear the boil. And then if you have the content, okay, but typically people know themselves what caused the boil, but not always. I just want to make this distinction between being able to help people help themselves, because mostly we know how to solve our own problems, but not always, right? So just understand that we won't always have all the answers, because we don't always know all the details and have those replacements handy. And this is, what Way of Impeccability is in hearing and helping. These are replacement tools that are beyond the obvious. So we're having extra skills. We're learning extra skills. Yeah.
Okay.
Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff.
All right. I don't know. This is a task. To make space, well, I'm going to read it on here first.
Mhm.
To make space, do you need to be aware of what's involved in terms of what you are making space for? Write a story or share a detailed example of what exactly goes inside someone, yourself if possible, who is receiving space. What kind of space is the example? How do we surpass?
1 second. There was one key critical word missing there. What exactly goes on inside someone, not goes inside them.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Goes on inside someone, yes.
That small little word, but makes a big difference.
Yes.
What's going on inside them? Yeah.
And the second part was, how do we surpass the necessity of holding all this detailed information about making space in our minds all at
Yeah, let's
once?
just do the first part. Sorry to interrupt you. Let's just do that first part first, because they're two separate things. Yeah. Right. So to hear that one again, to make space.
Well, to make space, do I need to be aware of what's involved in terms of what I am making space for?
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. You do not. Exactly.
What goes on inside as I am receiving space? What kind of space?
Yeah.
I do not need to be aware of what I am making space for, but I do have to make and be aware of trust.
Exactly.
Trust in
Yes.
allowing space to be created.
Yes.
Then once I
Yes.
have this inner shift of being, my body, mind, and spirit all become one. No beginning, no end, just being. Sometimes it's quick and sometimes gradual.
Yes.
Becoming now familiar with this feeling, I am able to let more in. This letting in is actually where the space is created. Interesting, because I always used to believe I had to let go to let more.
Yeah.
But I am becoming more aware that I must let more in to create more.
Yeah.
As I let the more in and can feel the space growing and expanding, my breath becomes thorough and deep and widening, a magical moreness of space.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Your point on trust is huge. We don't know what is going on inside them and how they will resolve it. But what we do know is that they also need to trust that resolution is possible. So we can always make space for trust. Trust that resolution will come. Trust that resolution can come. Trust that there is a resolution somewhere out there, right? If people don't believe that, that's where they get stuck. But now you come and, oh no, don't worry, you may not see it right now. You may have no clue where it is, but this is it. There is going to be resolution. And now, oh, okay. And then so they persist anyway, not knowing where they're going. But your trust, your space, you've made space for this trust in resolution. And so they continue, they keep going, right? That's why they come to you, because they trust you have the resolution. You might have no clue where it is, but you just have a trust that it is there. And this you share. This is what you make space for, right? You're making space is a sharing. When you make space for trust, you are sharing this idea, this concept, this absolute conviction, right? Because your trust is a conviction, not just a belief. The conviction that resolution is available, is possible, can come. Don't know how, but it will come. That's where the exploration comes in. Yes. That's the hardest part, right? Is for most people, they struggle to trust in what they can't see. They just struggle to trust. They can't see a resolution, so they assume it doesn't exist. It's just how we trained. If we can't see it, we don't believe in it, right? So your job is to absolutely communicate it's there. Whether you see it right now or not, you know through process, through lancing the boil, it will heal itself. Trust, trust, trust. Making space, making space, making space. So magically powerful, yeah?
Well, then the next part was, how do we surpass the necessity of holding all this detailed information about making space in our minds all at once? What one thought, awareness, and space-making intent can we hold which will allow us to innately and automatically make the needed and necessary space in any particular situation as needed?
Yeah.
And I wrote patience.
There you go. Exactly. Which is patience is a trust that things will work out. Beside waiting without stress. When you're patient, are you not trusting that things will work out? There you go. Look at the hair example again. One hair at a time, patience. Little by little leads to leaps and bounds. Things will work out. Just keep doing the little things. In other words, keep persisting. So yes, patience is also a trust in incremental persistence. Yes. We are trusting that things resolve also on their own besides our actions. Yes, we've got to take action, but there are other forces involved as well, right? I take out one hair at a time, but in doing so, I'm actually loosening the knot. I'm just removing one hair at a time in my mind, but the things that's outside of me is the way the knot itself has space, and the way now without this tension, sometimes the knot starts to, move on its own a little bit, right? So things aren't always just due directly to our actions. They work on their own accord. Okay, the hair knot's not the best example of this, but when you just take that and make it, expand it, exaggerate it, you'll see how psychologically this works. Once you start releasing things a little bit here and there, there's lots of pressure, and then it's consequential, and one thing leads to another, and especially through emphasis. The brain can change through emphasis, and things that weren't in awareness come into awareness. And now the brain actually operates differently. and there you can get to resolution. So our negative pressure is a profound emphasis. When we're making space, we are emphasizing things like patience, trust, self-honesty, ability to share anything. Dealing with painful stuff is not painful. All these things, by implication, we are making space for all of these non-obvious concepts. Yes?
Yes.
Monas. So yes.
All right. The next one is a task also.
So with that trust, that one concept, you said patience. Yes, we could have said trust also works. Yes, making space, hearing, all of them. It's all the same thing, right? It's an intent that things will work out if we simply just give them chance, make space for them, persist, do, right? So, when somebody comes to you with a problem, it's not always a boil problem, where the pus needs to get released. Yes, that's when venting's required. Sometimes it's hair tanglement, right? It's a different thing. So, there's different types of ways to deal with things. Sometimes they need to vent. Sometimes they just need to be really patient. So it's always though, same thing with the pus coming out. Yes, it may come out in one big gob, but sometimes it comes out slowly, and so need to make space for it. Same thing, trust and patience. They're trust and patience, two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And our intent. Yes, when we make space, we are making space with an intent. Yeah.
Mhm.
Always, you go into any interaction, there's always an intent involved. Now, we may not always be clear about that intent, or others aren't clear about that intent, but we can, right? Our intent is to make space. Our intent is to hear. Why? Because we know when we do those, it solves the problem, right? Look at taking the hair, pulling out hair, you're making space in the knot for the knot to untangle, same thing. So always when we are hearing, that's taking the hair out, right? They the ones who are pulling the hair out one at a time. We are making space for them to be able to do that patiently, right? Because when they sit at home doing this, they tug on it. But when they see you being patient, well, I kind of have to be patient now, right? And they go slowly one at a time. Yeah. So that's it. We assist. Very, very simple stuff. Very cool.
All right. This one is a bit longer.
Excellent.
So if I were literally exploring with someone who had some problem on their mind and in their heart and was not thus fully present, how would I be as a fellow explorer?
Excellent. I mean, for that one, actually imagine that you're on a trail somewhere physically with somebody who is like that.
Well, the first thing I would do is ground myself with my breath and stand in my space.
There you go.
This action not only creates space for the client, but for myself as well.
Yeah.
The space allows for more awareness of being and feeling on my end as a practitioner and the tissues beneath my hands. This feeling also helps create space for the other to be aware of what is happening inside of them.
Yeah. So if you were physically on a trail with somebody who's kind of like a bit out of it, they're not paying attention, their mind is elsewhere. You would be paying attention to make sure they don't walk off the path, or, okay, there's a hole in the path. You'd say, hey, there's a hole here. But you're not necessarily giving them advice on what to do. You're just paying attention and being aware on their behalf. Yes? See the analogy here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then look at the next couple of questions there as you go through them. And it makes it really, this was, very physical, literal example, right?
Well, the next part is, would it fall on me to be the one who is paying attention and staying aware? Yes and no.
Exactly.
If I am facilitating a session of support, then I must be paying attention and aware of what is going on, but I don't need to know the why.
Exactly. You don't have to know why they aren't paying attention to the trail. They're thinking about their job or whatever. their relationship, but still, you know, you don't want them to also fall. Yeah. So, yeah. So it's very little that you need to do. Just, you know, when necessary, say this, say that, and then, right. You don't have to give them advice to say,
Well,
hey,
that's
you know, pay attention, but okay, here's a hole. They'll get it after a while that they're not paying attention. Yeah. Yeah.
well, that's the next part. Do I need to give them advice or make sure they don't fall into crevices?
Yeah.
Stay
Exactly.
on path.
Yeah.
No. Need, I wrote no, but definitely offer questions to allow a more awareness of self. No advice giving. That is not my role.
Exactly. I mean, you could just say, hey, you know, where you at? What do you mean, where am I at? Well, you're kind of not here, you know, but just that question alone typically is the answer, you know. So to the problem, right? Exactly. Exactly. Strategic, right? I like this next one too.
When I come to some wonderful new place, do I need to tell them what it is or just alert them if they are so lost inside as to not notice the obvious? Alert, maybe bring it to their attention.
Exactly.
Ask and
Exactly.
allow them to come to the awareness of this new place.
Exactly. You don't have to say, wow, you know, this is a magical waterfall and it is a beautiful thing. You don't have to explain how beautiful a waterfall is. If they notice it, they're going to see that for themselves, right? And that's typically the problem most coaches do. They make this, their advice is telling you that something is beautiful when it's obviously beautiful of its own accord. Or some people may like waterfalls, others may not. You know, it's beautiful to me, it may not be beautiful to them. But if I see they aren't aware of it, they, you know, they glazed over, they're not even seeing the waterfall. It doesn't matter how much I talk about the waterfall. If they're not seeing it, it's not going to connect, right? So all I want to do is make them aware of the waterfall. Oh, are you seeing the waterfall? Oh, what waterfall? Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. How cool. You see what I mean? It's amazing sometimes. It's just directing attention, just focusing. And that we can typically do through just simple, obvious little questions. Yeah.
Well, the next
Yeah.
part is
Somebody's
once
not
they do
noticing.
look up.
So I just want to reiterate this, right? If they're not noticing the waterfall, we don't have to explain the magic and beauty of the waterfall, right?
No, it's just them
They
being
just not
aware of
noticing
it.
it. Exactly. Yeah.
Once they do look up, will they see that obvious without me? I wrote, I hope so. It's theirs, and they should be experiencing. I am just a support witness.
Exactly. Now, let's assume somebody's never seen something before. They are going to take their cues from you. If you are standing there, wow, this is so cool and enjoying it. Oh, okay. And then they take it from you and then they share too, right? So we can just cue sometimes if something is really outside somebody's experience and they have no idea, then all right, maybe we can give them some clues, but they'll figure it out for themselves for the most part.
And will the terrain, the situation be self-explanatory and obvious once their attention is connected to it? Sometimes, but sometimes more is needed to fully connect to the awareness and what
Exactly.
is being discovered.
Exactly. Plus and minus as appropriate. But two, you know, the first go-to is always to give them the opportunity to connect and figure out and become aware by themselves, not to assume they don't know. It's very rare somebody's going to come to a waterfall and not appreciate it for what it is. You know, it might happen, but it's rare.
Oh, yay.
Exactly. And the very last one there.
Oh, just simply, if I keep making things fun and safe, will I make space for them to deal with what they're dealing with and see the obvious when needed? And I wrote, yes, of course.
Exactly. And that's a huge point though, because again, psychotherapy, if you continually focused on problem, it's like, come on, man, I don't want to do more because every time I share my problems, it leads to more problems. This is not cool. This is not cool at all. You know, but when it's fun and safe and you make space for to deal with what they're dealing with and see the obvious when needed, it's fun and safe. So now I'm happy to share, have more come out because it's fun and safe. And therefore I'm exploring. And when that more comes and the obvious is needed, it's not associated with negativity. It's associated with fun and safe. So we turn exploration from a fear, caution, like terror, into an excitement and a fun. We turn it from being lost, which is dreadful and stressful, to being on an adventure. Yes, which is fun and joyful. Yeah. Shift of mindset, shift of mindset. That's what we make space for. And our space that we hold is that space of exploration and adventure, fun, safety, right? Newness is going to come. Newness is moreness. This is exciting. This is the space we are making. That you talking about all your problems. It's not a stressful, horrible, unpleasant thing. No, it's a fun and exciting stuff. We're exploring you. We're getting into what makes you work, what sticks, how things are connected. And okay, yes, there may be stuff going on here, but hey, this is exploration of you. It's a fun and exciting thing. We're not, listing all your 101 problems. That's a negative thing. See, it's that tweaking. We are making space for a reconception, a different perspective on what they do. Yeah. Yes, lancing a boil is painful. But when we say, oh, we are focused on the positive side of it, think of the release. Think of the absence of the pain. Yes, see, shifting of the focus. Don't focus on the lance point, focus on the release point. There you go. Yeah.
Something inexplicable happens. Somehow, suddenly, I end up on paths heretofore unseen, heretofore unimagined. If I allow myself, if I let loose and run down these paths, eagerly exploring where I might lead, what I reveal, what I connect to, what is shown to me, I dance with wonder. More comes and moreness from more, and soon I overflow.
Yes. Thank you, Bella. That's very cool quote there.
Yeah, that was like a poem.
Yes.
46. Here I come to a sophisticated understanding and knowing, which is most people contain the answers to what they know already within them somewhere. I know this on a deep level. All I really need is the opportunity to muddle around, to explore, to wade through the mess and clutter they currently experience. My exploration is an invitation to explore with patience, with mistake, with repeat and redo, with backtracking and re-exploring. My exploration is thus also an invitation to practice. I like that.
Very cool.
All right, the last one I did, look at that. Usually I'm way ahead, so we are all caught up. So my last slide that I did is, what is the difference between what people say they want, what they actually want, what they believe they want, and what they actually need? Intention and intending. Talking it through to the end. Awareness while sharing. Pausing, zoom out, follow through, and awareness of discovery. Discovery equals awareness to more, an understanding of self. This can bring to awareness actual needs and wants and the difference. Set aside what I believe someone needs and simply wait and absolutely trust and see what comes. Do this as many times as I can until this is proven to me as a method. I can absolutely trust each and every time I can, thus take myself and my ideas as to what's needed completely out of the picture.
Very cool.
This was good.
Yeah. Not the good stuff. Not the good stuff. It all starts to fall into place. We have to just trust, like language when we were kids. You don't always understand, but it comes later. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but what's cool about this today and this weekend, and definitely continued patience, awareness, pausing. Yeah, through the past, I would say week, I'm having this real neat feeling of pausing, I guess, slowing down
Mhm.
to really experience what is on my journey.
Yeah.
Support. And practicing that support, not only physically, bless you,
Thank
but
you.
also that support, like for my girlfriend Angie, who I'm not with, just to provide that energetic support and just, you know, that intent of being.
Mm-hmm.
And then with work, I'm in a space at the moment for myself to create more learning, I guess, and understanding,
Yeah.
lancing my own boils. I mean, if I go back on a takeaway with the beginning of this, or a repeat back, no, my takeaway of this session in the beginning is lancing my own boils to let the
Yes.
pus come
Yes.
out,
Yes. Yes.
in order to create the space for more and to shift the bulges, the dents.
Yes. To come to resolution. Yes.
Now that I'm doing the schoolwork, it's like homeostasis, you know.
Always will be that. Mm-hmm.
So cool. So cool. So cool. So cool. So yeah, see, thank you, Robin.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I'll show you why I'm saying thank you specifically. He said, oh, it's like a poem. I said, yeah, Biella tends to speak very poetically. So I just reformatted it in
Yes,
format because that's more appropriate for it. So yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Something inexplicable happens somehow, suddenly. We end up on paths heretofore unseen, heretofore unimagined. If we allow ourselves, if we let loose and run down these paths, eagerly exploring where they might lead, what they reveal, what they connect to, what they show us, we dance with wonder. More comes and more comes from more, and soon we overflow. That's exactly what's happening with Robin.
Yep.
It's very, very cool. It's very cool. It's one of my favorite quotes. You know, Biella just, you know, she has magical stuff going on there. It's very cool. So
Actually, you know what? Leave that up for a second. I'm gonna.
yeah, it'll be on yours too. You just have to refresh, and it will come.
I just want to take a picture of it.
No, okay. You'll have it on in your program too, Robin.
Yep.
Yeah, you just need to refresh now for it to come. When you refresh, it'll take you back to the beginning probably. But anyway, so yeah, it's very cool. Very, very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
All right. Well, off to work. Off
Yes.
to a new week.
Good timing.
And
Are you hooking up with Dan again or no?
we have to. He didn't have his schedule with them, but yes, the plan is for us to continue doing exchanges on each other.
What a gift. What a gift.
Oh
from
my
the-
gosh. Yes.
And I want to keep emphasizing this.
Technically, you could have that could have been your school, but you wouldn't have had an official certification for it. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And also, I want to emphasize the magic that's in your life, right? This continual interactivity of what we do here and what we are focused on, and then it's in your life. Yes.
I know, yes. But that's also where, you know, when I say I had to be very respectful of this because I am very much aware of this.
Unrelenting positivity. Absolutely. It's essential that we hold space and that we are in a space, that vacuum. We don't want to be sucking stuff towards us. That's crap and nonsense. Right. So we have to have it be appropriate space, positive space. Yes.
Appropriate focusing. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Attention management, in other words, all about
in its
attention.
finest, yes.
In its finest, yes. Our attention can be that lance point sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, true. Yes.
Yes, when you pop a balloon, when you pop it with a pin, you're using the absolute literal smallest part of the pin to pop the balloon.
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely say yesterday
Yeah.
was that bulge, and then just having the practice was the pin that
Yes.
allowed it to,
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Now, when we are looking at problems from this point of the boil, right? Sometimes if you launch it too soon, there's not enough pressure. So you've got to let the pressure build a little bit. So you got to agitate it a bit sometimes, right? And let it build, and then when you'll know, this is our hearing. Our hearing is that, Lance, that automatically does it. We don't have to do it. It will automatically, we're listening, the pressure builds, boom, it pops. We don't even have to launch it. Just let it happen of its own accord. Yeah.
which I like that better that way,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
because
oh, yeah.
I've seen both sides of it, and I prefer the
Exactly.
letting it
Exactly.
happen on its own.
Exactly. So we let the bubble pop itself, because we're creating this negative space, this pressure, this vacuum for it to kind of sucks it out, as it were, for it to go in. It's appropriate for it to pop here, right? It's very
Yes.
key.
Yeah.
All
Very
right.
cool.
I will see all of you on Thursday,
Yes. Brilliant.
and
Brilliant.
have a most fabulous day.
Oh, you too, Robin. You too. You
Okay.
too. You too. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Let me do all my things that I need to do here.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Okay. Okay. I just want to end the recording here. All right. See you soon. See you soon.